What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. We're back. It's time for another episode of the Security Token Show. That means we've got all the latest and greatest RWA tokenization news here for you. And we're coming hot off the heels of TokenizeThis. So, wow, we've got a jam-packed episode today of just news and information. And I'm glad to do it, as always, with my co-host, Kyle. How are you this week?
Herwig, I am doing great. We had a super productive week last week with TokenizeThis and a jam-packed episode with some A+ articles. I cannot wait to dive in. Let's do it.
Well, TokenizeThis was pretty serious, wasn't it? We moved it to New York from Miami, and I think it was a pretty big shift, a pretty big change. I think we saw that with the audience that pulled up. Most of all, a lot more traditional finance, big bank names, big asset managers, household names. You love to see them pulling up, but also from the crypto side. So there was a true intersection happening that I think we got to witness firsthand, and not to mention a lot of great feedback on our panels and speakers. Great job emceeing on day 2 there, Kyle.
Thanks. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I think that the panelists were incredible. The energy in the venue was awesome. Even the workshop on day 3, I thought was super productive. We really, as a team, I think everybody came together, all of the moderators, all the panelists, all the event staff, production teams, everyone came together to throw just an absolute banger of an event.
Shout out to the Expo Hall, as well as the Solana Village, as we called it. Seeing a lot of Solana representation in the RWA space at the event. And we are having all of this content drop. So from any great panels about the rise of yield coins, tokenized stocks, real estate, of course, Wall Street's tokenization moment and how they're endorsing and developing this infrastructure on chain. It's all available on our YouTube at STMTV official. So it's dropping pretty much every day as our team can get it out to you. And wow, there were some real good panels. I can't wait to see how people react to them. Some great clips in there. Kyle, any fan favorites you want to mention?
Look, I think Institutional Day as a whole was killer. We had the Jason fireside chat with one of the leads of the Konings team, breaking down everything that JP Morgan's doing. We had high level conversations from Wisdom Tree, from Franklin Templeton, and everybody in between. It was a tremendous discussion. And I felt like each panel was just firepower and fireworks after one another. And so, again, major shout out to you and the rest of the team for getting the heaviest hitters to be able to speak. And it wasn't just the same old faces that you see at these types of things. It was a really high quality crowd.
It's an evolving landscape, Kyle, and we loved the venue, the Glass House. It was absolutely epic. We took full advantage of that VIP room and the media space. So more interviews coming as well soon on our channel. And we had some special announcements, one from the RWA Foundation we're going to get to, as well as a big one from Security Token Market we can get to right now. So let's get to it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Ooh, Kyle, we have a big announcement. Security Token Market is now STM.co. We've got a live beta you can go check out at STM.co. So go check it out and give us your feedback. But we've got a whole new brand, a whole new platform. We can't wait to hear your feedback. And with that, let's get into the market movements. Man, it's a packed week.
Just us today, huh? After a couple weeks of having 4, 5, 6 people on the show, it's just the boys for the market movements for episode 281, huh?
Looks like so. I think everyone's getting a little busy heading over to Dubai for Token 2049. I'm sure that we'll hear a lot of big announcements coming out of that. I suspect, just like we've seen at DAS and at many other events, that RWAs will once again be a mainstay topic. I can't wait to see what comes out of that. But in the meantime, the market did not slow down, Kyle, which means without any other contributors, we're going to have to keep the show going, won't we?
That's right. That's absolutely right, Herwig. So with that, we can move into our first article. What's on your docket?
Well, there was a big one. I love this concept. We've been talking about this rise of stable coins, the RWA hidden in plain sight now, well over 200 billion strong, close to 250, I think. There's now the rise of yield coins, right? So yield bearing instruments that, mostly tied to usually treasuries and very highly liquid instruments like money market funds. They are now moving into a new era. The yield bearing settlement network designed for institutions is now live, called Lynq Network. Okay. The LYNQ network, Lynq Network, which is powered by a heavy hitter group of folks, okay? Arca Labs basically invented a tokenized treasury fund for it. They are the OGs with their ARCcoin, so they know what they're doing.
That was underappreciated. Yeah. I think they were way ahead of their time with the ARCcoin product.
With a time when there was no yield, I think around treasuries is when they launched. So Tacit Group, another tokenization powerhouse, moving in with their technology. T0, household name for broker dealer activities. But not to mention, Kyle, US Bank coming in as the cash custodian, big heavy hitter. Avalanche is the underlying blockchain solution for the TFND shares. So this is an amazing group. B2C2 and Galaxy and Wintermute are also all involved. This is a new institutional settlement network that is completely driven by yield-bearing instruments as opposed to, aka yield coins, instead of stable coins. It makes a lot of sense, especially since we just saw Circle announce their own global payments network for businesses. This makes a lot of sense, tackling the cross-border transaction problem using stable coins. But this is what we're talking about, stable coins to yield coins. Why are we moving all towards yield coins? I think Lynq Network is on the nose. Kyle, what do you think?
I think that we need more industry participation, especially in the security token space. It really does demonstrate how many different intermediaries you need to assist in this process. They do break down, that T0 has their special purpose broker dealer, which is useful here. You then have the ARCA's registered investment advisor license, as well as their Delaware trust. You've got Tessot's, blockchain infrastructure, and then of course Galaxy and others to provide liquidity. So it really is, a team collective here to bring a product like this to market in an effective and sustainable way. We'll see how it competes directly with the existing products like a BlackRock's token or from the Biddle Fund or others, because these markets do exist already. So will this be just a competitive product that they'll use kind of as a cash substitute, a yield-bearing cash product? Is it similar to the Provenance yield-bearing token? It'll be interesting to see where all these products kind of fall into market, because they're similar, but they're obviously very different, I think, in important nuances.
Yeah, no, I think the interesting combination here is on the liquidity, right? You got players like Wintermute and others coming in to provide this kind of angle alongside the shell wrapper of, what T0 has alongside the product infrastructure of ARCA and US Bank. This is, very, very unique. I can't wait to see how people adopt this. I think the emphasis on being a liquidity settlement network is going to be key on, who is their first users, who are going to be their first adopters. And we're going to get a chance to hear all about it, Kyle, as we've got something planned with them in early May so that we can hear from a couple of the faces involved about what's going on with the Lynq Network. But there was more news, Kyle. Another $1 billion in U.S. real estate is coming. It is coming from Vera Capital and being tokenized on Block Square. And it is all US-based real estate, but it is not $1 billion today, as we know. This is a lot less. I think closer to 9 million tokenized, with another, 200 plus million in sight. but $1 billion, they say, is very achievable. And it's just another one of those signs. We see this quite often with a lot of real estate tokenizations about a pipeline, because if they get it down once, they know they can fill it with more of the same product if there's more demand for something similar usually. So, Kyle, what do you think about this? Bullish on this $1 billion in real estate?
Yeah, they're based in Florida. They have some properties in South Florida, in Dania Beach, as well as in Fort Lauderdale. So love the support of the South Florida ecosystem getting involved in the tokenized space. To your point, though, Herwig, there's about 10 million in real estate that I think they're actually bringing to market in a tokenized capacity today, with what they call a pipeline that is achievable or potentially overachievable at $1 billion plus. And so, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm psyched that they are ambitious with this plan. I do think this is kind of a classic press release thing that really catches your eye with the $1 billion number. And as we know, creating a token is not necessarily the hard part. It's actually getting someone else to buy it and justify the price and the market value of the real estate. That being said, the companies involved are very legitimate, and I think it's an exciting opportunity because we've seen how real estate can really be benefit or receive so much benefit from tokenization, and Vera Capital is a leader in that space here in South Florida. So for all the reasons, I think it makes a lot of sense. The question will be, what does tokenization mean for them? Does that see it as a secondary market trading style of solution, or is this more of tokenizing the title and allowing people to invest with stable coins, right? How does some of these processes work, and where do they see the actual tokenization beginning and ending? That will be what I'm interested in seeing with at least some of these early test properties.
Good luck to them. Absolutely. We love to track real estate market as it's so hard and fragmented in so many different ways that you can tokenize it to actually track it. So at stm.co, we do our best to put all that real estate information on chain. We look forward to tracking this stuff as well. But Kyle, have you ever heard of SoftBank Chain? Okay, so you've heard of SoftBank, I know, but have you heard of SoftBank Chain before?
SBC, I have not, Herwig. This is the first I'm hearing about it.
Well,
what is it?
Me too. It is, as you might assume, SoftBank's blockchain solution, and they're getting into the payments game. Okay, so really leaning into the bank side of their name. Interstellar Payment Solutions. Look out for it. They're looking to improve Web3 payments underlying the SoftBank chain. They've got their whole sort of interstellar network with their USDX stablecoin pegged, of course, to the US dollar built into it. They've got SBC Pay solutions. So let's see if this is now another sort of payments provider solution that's going to come hot into the stablecoin game, I guess. So look out, SoftBank Chain, Interstellar.
SoftBank Chain. They also are trying to rebrand this open finance framework, and they're calling it PayFi. And so that's an interesting terminology. I think that we may hear more often. Maybe a buzzword that's coming down the pipeline is payment finance, I guess, is what that would stand for.
PayFi.
I'm not exactly sure how that delineates from the rest of fintech or payments companies, but PayFi is something that they are also trying to push as a novel innovation of this technology.
Yep, that is a future evolvement of fintech, I guess, and more. So I love to see it. I'm here for bring on more and more jargon. And speaking of trying to standardize stuff, we are going to go straight to the top of sort of the Bank of International Settlement, doing a lot of work with the International Monetary Fund and a lot of folks. They've been bullish on tokenization for quite some time now. As you can expect, they've been extremely bullish on, promoting central bank digital currencies. But tokenization is their latest sort of, trend that's caught their eye. And Project Promisa from the BIS Innovation Hub speaks to a new trial experiment, I guess, with the main participants being the Swiss National Bank and the World Bank, tokenizing promissory notes, Kyle. So promissory notes specifically issued from these major, institutions, specifically designed to go after potentially developing countries and to be able to sort of better track potentially how spend is happening while taking advantage of the benefits of all of course, yield coins in this case, or a promissory note in this case. And it's on Canton's, Canton blockchain by Digital Assets. So another interesting trial that has yet again come to market regarding some of the more institutional activity. Any notes on this, Kyle?
Yeah, I think there's one paragraph in this article that just really hits home on why tokenization can impact these types of markets. And it is that today, the promissory notes are paper-based, signed with wet signatures, meaning you actually use a pen for it, couriered between countries and held in vaults at central banks. As the funds are released, the Ministry and Development Bank each hold their own records that have to be kept in sync by sending messages in between them. Right, so this is how they do promissory notes today, and it's a pretty large market in terms of intrabank and interjurisdictional lending. So, I think that these types of markets really do stand to benefit tremendously from the next generation of financial technology.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great illustration. I'm glad you highlighted that, Kyle. Much of a traditional finance, folks, especially in this case, some of the more archaic stuff literally still lives on paper. We've had a client complain about, having a vault of, shareholder certificates and things, just overflowing stuff. It still happens today. It's crazy. We're talking about a whole new operating system coming on chain. And I love to see it because we're always on the edge, the forefront as well, Kyle. We're talking about, yes, transforming or evolving the old, but at the same time, we're on the bleeding edge, and Sol Strategies is doing that with Maple Finance, with the launch of a 500 million tokenized note, okay, for their, of course, Sol-focused ecosystem strategy. So if you like to get in on the Sol train instead of the Bitcoin train, check out Sol Strategies. But love to see that they're eating the dog food of tokenization, right? A tokenized note here, Maple Finance, which is a very reputable, huge issuer already in this space. Over $1 billion they crossed in TVL recently. So congrats to the Maple Finance team. We heard from Sid actually last week at TokenizeThis, their CEO.
That's right.
Kyle, tell me your thoughts on this take exactly.
Well, I like it a lot. I like it a lot because I've spent a long time thinking about, a simple question, which is where do these staking yields come from? Where are all these companies that are offering their liquidity or offering to capture liquidity in order to generate yields? And the answer to that has consistently been, well, they've made new tokens. They've created a governance token, or they've paid for this in tokens that don't actually have a developed market and use case. And so now I think you're going to see a lot of this continue to grow, where so many of these large staking services or protocols or applications that have what we call TVL. These are people that have locked their valuable assets into the protocol in exchange for voting, for other rewards, things like this. You're going to have these app layers that sit on hundreds of millions of dollars of liquidity. They need to generate real yield sustainably. And so I think that working with a company like Maple to do that makes total sense. Maple is a top 5, potentially, certainly top 10, lender in this industry. They know how to get yields from TradFi products. And at the very least, it creates a sustainable ecosystem in the DeFi space. Maybe the yields are a bit different or come from a different place than what they're used to. But again, sustainability is the important side here. You're not going to see a lot of things blow up when they're leveraging, U.S. treasuries, for example, to generate yield.
Totally agree, Kyle. I think this merger of RWAs coming into yield and DeFi and everything else is going to be huge. And stable coins continue to be a big part of that picture. I want to talk about really quickly about the fact that it's sort of news now that ING is coming out with a stable coin. So another big bank coming out with a stable coin. I just think this is a big deal. We saw earlier Bank of America plans to launch a stable coin, right? We already know JPM coin is kind of its own version, but the fact of the matter is we haven't seen much bank activity, and now we're going to see a whole lot of it. And this year alone, we might start seeing some issuances. But I think it's just worth highlighting, Kyle. This is an inflection point for the stablecoin industry. It's about to heat up as we get real banks, real big banks say, yeah, we want the stablecoin action. This is our territory. This is our lunch that we're going to defend, that you're coming after. And let's see how good these banks are at making tech.
Yeah, makes total sense. We'll see as it comes live how this works. I know that many banks are exploring the same thing as they've seen the success from many of the largest institutions getting involved here. So it'll be cool to see how this gets adopted within their ecosystems.
Kyle, one last thing I want to end this segment on is Ondo. Okay, I want to give them a little cheerleading support for them and the fine folks over at Davis and Polk, who are their advisors for this, I guess, SEC meeting that they had recently to go over presumably a lot of their plans and structure for how they are doing their new Ondo Global Markets, which is their platform designed for tokenizing stocks, right? For international investors to get easy access to tokenized public equities in the US markets that get you all the benefits of, like settlement in real time, and I think maybe even 24/7, as well as collateralization and peer-to-peer transfer. A lot of the cool stuff that honestly I would really like access to, Kyle. But the fact is they need to talk to the regulators, the big dogs, the SEC, and they went down over to DC. CEO and CSO, Chief Strategy Officer Ian DeBoe, as well as Nathan Allman. And we went down there and met up with them. And we've seen a couple of players like also Carlos Domingo from Securitize and others sort of be active down in DC. So I love to see this sort of activity being vocalized because we need to see more of it. And of course, good job to Davis, Polk, and Wardwell, who are the legal advisors. Kyle, any comments on this promotion? I know it was good for their token as well. So I think their price is up.
Well, it's a great initiative, and it's cool to see that regulators are engaging in these conversations with these types of companies that are trying to do things the right way. I think that was probably my biggest criticism of the previous administration, was that you had a lot of firms in our industry in particular trying to do the right thing and feeling like they were being shut down. And so it's cool to see that these conversations are able to happen so that we can start to build something sustainable here.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of something sustainable, we're trying to build the largest community of crypto natives focused on real world assets, something that can live forever through the Wally DAO. We actually had a pretty big announcement from the RWA Foundation last week at TokenizeThis, Kyle. So let's move on with the show to the next segment. It was an amazing audience last week in New York City, electric, if you will. A lot of different folks from both the crypto scene, from the tokenization RWA space, and traditional finance speaking up saying, hey, what's going on with this elephant here? Who the heck is Wally that you guys keep talking about? And we had a chance to go on stage and actually feature some member spotlights, including some new members that have joined the RWA Foundation, the Solana Foundation, as well as Orca, which is one of the largest DEXs on Solana. We also recently saw Plume join. So we're seeing some more activity. We actually still have some time for founding members to join. And some new initiatives coming out very, very soon. I can't wait to get to next week. But in the meantime, we finally released and hyped up Wally himself. So with that, lower the lights and roll the show. I really don't think you're ready, especially if you're not in our Telegram chat. So make sure you go to wallydao.xyz and join our Telegram chat. Trust me, You haven't missed anything. You're still early. We're just getting started. We've been doing a lot of behind the scenes work with all our partners, and you can expect a lot of big announcements coming from X and our Telegram. Come join the fun. So with that, there's more tokenization news to get to, so don't go anywhere. Let's get on with the Token Debrief. I love Wally, Kyle, but we got more token news to get to. So why don't we dive right into that? Some big news on the sort of regulatory front all around the world. But Kyle, it's finally happened. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Gensler is officially gone and no one's looking back, huh?
No one's looking back. We've had an amazing intermission, if you will, but the time has come for our official chairman to be sworn in, and sworn in he has. I'm talking about none other than Paul S. Atkins, of course. They say that S stands for security tokens. I'm not sure. Yeah, this is a previous advisor to SEC, to Securitize. You know, he did obviously step down from that role, as he did with all of his other conflicts. But we're talking about someone who is extremely familiar and aware and understanding of the concept of tokenization, what this means for the industry of finance in general. So the fact that we have a crypto mandate from the White House, this is why, of course, we have a great new chairman coming in. There's a good understanding of what to do across the board, I think, hopefully. Kyle, I don't know if you have any thoughts on Mr. Paul Security Token Atkins.
Yeah, he was a former commissioner in the past, so he was not the chairman, but he has sat in a similar seat before, so he's familiar with how this process goes. And it does seem like, according to many of the congressmen that have spoken in their support of what he's been up to and his appointment, they are expecting that he will help lead a official position on the digital asset industry. It seems like there is going to be some serious momentum on providing clarity here. So I think that is a fantastic effort. And it looks like, as we talked about earlier in the show, Ando is already meeting with the SEC to discuss some of these things. So off to a hot start.
Off to a hot start, Kyle. But wait, there's more, as they say. Actually, supposedly the U.S. SEC and El Salvador, I believe it was Commissioner Peirce, that had some quotes around this. We're meeting together to talk about cross-border tokenization. Actually, I believe it was around real estate tokenization in El Salvador, being able to have some cross-border transactions in sort of a pilot type regime, something we have never really seen in the past. So once again, really, really promising start from this new administration, this new SEC. But also we saw an announcement that central banks are once again rallying around tokenization, as we mentioned earlier with the Bank of International Settlement news, Project Promesa, and many other trials that they're doing. Apparently at IMF, in an IMF spring meeting, okay, this is where once again was a hot topic. VARA, the regulator over out in Dubai, also came out with an announcement, folks, especially leading into Token 2049, making Dubai very hot right now. They're saying, watch out for anyone claiming that they might have some kind of role in their sandbox, doing some kind of a tokenization pilot, especially around real estate in Dubai. There are only a few firms that have been approved or announced. So make sure they're saying that when you're hearing from somebody claiming this, that they are indeed actually authorized to say this. And finally, Kyle, the Prime Minister of Malaysia has met up with none other than CZ, the previous CEO of Binance, to promote blockchain and tokenization, specifically trying to make Malaysia a hub for blockchain. And of course, CZ still carrying a lot of weight and influence and promoting it himself. Totally. So any takeaways on some of this regulatory news, if you will, Kyle?
I just really want like a US sandbox for tokenization. That would be so cool. I know that the Fed had explored some of those things with the FedWire or FedNow, I believe, something like that project, but it really would be cool if we could create, tokenized ecosystems with the full stack, going from primary issuance all the way through to secondary market, layering in escrow, layering in transfer agents, layering in all the broker dealers and the processes with respect to all of these different things. I think that would be helpful for the regulators to see what the process looks like through and through. It would be helpful for companies to explore how this process works. And it would be great to find vendors that are experienced in these things and have the wherewithal to make it happen. So I think for all those reasons, it would be tremendous. And so these types of pilots are a good first step.
I completely agree with that. We're still in the early phases of all of this. And so we just want to get regulators as comfortable and educated on this technology and this concept as much as possible so we can get the right regulatory infrastructure in place around it. But that's not going to stop the market from moving, is it, Kyle? We're seeing token announcements every week, and we've got a couple more to talk about. LCX. Liechtenstein, I believe, they have announced a big new framework for their end-to-end platform, and they now have LCXG, LCXS, and LCXP, gold, silver, and platinum tokens that are available or launching. So this is very cool to see, again, more commodities type products, in this case, precious metals, be tokenized. Polygon and PSYSE, P-S-Y-S-E, hopefully I'm saying that right. They're tokenizing an EV fleet in Dubai, which I think is pretty cool. That might be a hot topic discussed over in 2049, but they are expecting to span quickly over to India, which India has long been poised to be a great infrastructure and ecosystem for tokenization. So I think that's a great move. And Securitize has teamed up with Mantle. Okay, Mantle launching their own institutional crypto index fund on Securitize, Mantle Index 4, MI4. So great to see that be tokenized. You love to see people eat their own dog food like that. So a crypto fund should absolutely be tokenized. Kyle, any thoughts on any of these tokens?
Yeah, I didn't know much about Mantle, but it looks like they're launching this index fund with some of the blue chips, you know, the Bitcoin, the ETH, some synthetic stable coins, things like that. But the thing that surprised me, they are anchoring this fund with $400 million to start. So they are seeding it themselves with $400 million. This is no joke of a fund. This is not just like a simple feeder. This is a really big tokenized vehicle that is being committed with serious GP commits on the issuance. So a big win for Securitize. I'm sure they're taking fees on that. And on top of that, it's a real fund. It's a real tokenized product.
Crypto index game is starting to heat up. We've seen a couple of these similar type products come out now from CoinDesk, Coinbase, and others. Good for Mantle for putting their money where their mouth is, if you will, and by putting it on chain with Securitize. Moving into some more announcements, Kyle, we also saw that Bricken is now officially launching a sort of new version of themselves, more enterprise grade, white label solution that they're planning to offer that they say to meet the rising demand. Securitize Japan also announced a partnership with NTT Data. They say to bring visibility into bond issuers that are digitizing and tokenizing bonds, which we think is an extremely popular topic that is not being covered enough because there is so much on-chain bond activity happening all around the world. We cover that over at stm.co if you want to go check it out. Billions and billions. So good move by Securitize in Japan with NTT Data. Looking forward to seeing what kind of information we might be able to track from that. Also, Saison Capital, a big pioneer in the tokenization space, alongside BRI Ventures and Coinvestasi. Okay, they're launching an RWA startup accelerator in Indonesia. I'm a big fan of this concept of launch pads or accelerators using tokenization. In this case, I guess a startup accelerator, leveraging it, hopefully, is what I'm understanding. So a great use case. I think we're going to see many more of those, actually. And Deloitte ending it here with a couple of reports. Deloitte saying that they're predicting real estate to go on chain by 2035 to the degree of $4 trillion. We think that's extremely bearish, in my opinion. By 2035, it'll probably be closer to maybe even 40 trillion, at least 20 trillion. Anyway, agree to disagree. We've got a great report on that, reports.stm.co on our predictions. Finally, CFA Institute, they released their own report on tokenization's impact for traditional asset classes. So this is just a great, good old banger of research if you're into that type of stuff to go check out from the CFA Institute. Kyle, any final closing thoughts on these announcements?
These are good announcements. I want to shout out BRI Ventures. I've had a chance to speak with them in Bali. as well as in a few other places in Southeast Asia. Great team, very interested in tokenization, and I definitely would recommend anyone apply to their accelerator program. I'm sure that it will come with a lot of value. And BRI, I believe, is the biggest or largest bank in Indonesia. So they are a venture fund underneath a huge institution in Indonesia, which is a really, really large market. It's bigger than you might think if you're a Western-focused person and don't know quite as much about the Southeast Asian region. And so I would say definitely worth reaching out. I certainly know that I will be. And so I would recommend you do the same.
Yeah, that's a big deal, Kyle. I'm excited to keep my eye on what comes out of that new startup accelerator for sure. And that's all we have for the show. But, in terms of news, which means we have to pick a winner, don't we? So don't go anywhere, Kyle. It's time for the companies of the week, folks.
Okay, all right. Gosh, Herwig, the companies of the week. This segment never gets old. It's been 281 episodes, and it's still the thing that gets me the most excited because we get to pick two companies that make the biggest announcements in the industry. That doesn't necessarily mean largest in terms of the biggest market cap or the most amount of money. It means something innovative, something notable, something that we wanted to give a particular shout out to a company for doing something incredible. And for that reason, I think that we pick two each week with one winner at the end of the year, half to being nominated by Company of the Week, gets selected as our Company of the Year winning, which is now 5.5, 6 years running, something like that, Herwig, with our 6-year anniversary, I believe, coming up here in June, only a month-ish away. So with that, episode 281, who is your Company of the Week winner?
Nearing 6 years, nearing 300 episodes. I'm jazzed every time I get to pick somebody, spotlight somebody who's doing something cool. And sometimes it is usually deservedly a company that has made a huge announcement or has brought on potentially a lot of money on chain or tokenized a pretty cool asset. Well, in this case, I want to highlight a firm that's forward thinking, that's, bleeding, if you will, the crypto ethos and the RWA ethos. And also because we recently saw the Solana Foundation join the RWA Foundation. I'm feeling pretty good about Sol Strategies. You're my company of the week for tokenizing that $500 million note with Maple. I think that's a fantastic choice in partnership. Big fan of the Maple team as well. Another RWA Foundation member, but specifically they're a leader sort of creating pools around lending and borrowing strategies. In this case, a promissory note, I think or tokenized note, is a great use case. So for that reason, hopefully I hope to see this $500 million be a very successful fast fill for them so that they can keep issuing more and more and more of them, Kyle. That's why I want to highlight this Sol Strategies strategy for raising capital and staking it, if you will, into the yield of the Sol ecosystem. So yeah, congratulations, Sol Strategies. You're my company of the week.
Yeah, we're finally bridging that gap between DeFi and TradFi and connecting it, and it always was going to come through staking, I guess. So shout out to Sol for making that happen, or Sol Strategies rather, for making that happen. But Herwig, my company of the week this week is a lot of familiar faces, and that is Lynq, the treasury product yield-bearing settlement network that's launched by tZERO, Arca Labs, and Tissot, along with Wintermute and Galaxy and a bunch of other players. They're creating a network to solve a lot of this underlying ledger solutions and bringing liquidity into the ecosystem. I love tZERO. I've been a huge fan. They've been very good to us over the years. So I'm happy to see they're bringing a cool product to market, coming from an institutional capacity and really flexing that special purpose broker dealer and putting it to quick use. So for that reason, I want to give Lynq a shout out this week.
Kyle, that's such a great choice. There's so many big names involved in Lynq. It's like too many to count. But beyond, all of them being top tier partner. So I'm really excited to see just what kind of attention or what kind of starting clients they bring to the Lynq Network, because I think they're coming on the scene pretty strong. Great choice.
That's right.
Well, that's all we have this week for the show. Everybody, congrats to our winners and congrats to everybody else that's moving this space forward. It was so awesome to see a lot of you in New York last week. Again, much of this content is available now on STM TV Official, with more of it dropping every day. We've got a lot of sauce, if you will, coming out of this conference, a lot of great quotes and clips that we'll be putting out there as we prepare for more exciting stuff. And make sure you check out our new beta, stm.co. It's as easy as that to go there. We've got a lot of very new visuals and a lot of new ways that you can track the market very easily by categories, actually segmented by primary and secondary, as you can see. I think we have an important distinction that needs to happen, and a lot of more features coming soon. So be sure to check it out every day. That's all I got, Kyle. What about you?
Hey, look, it's good to be back here in Miami. Ryan, my business partner on global settlements in Dubai for Token 2049. So if you're in the area and you'd like to meet with him in person, definitely hit me up or hit him up. Check out our website, globalsettlement.com, for more information. And if you're tokenizing money market funds or stable coins or commodities, definitely hit me up. I want to learn more about what you're building.
Don't freak out. Our Twitter handle simply changed to Markets on Chain, Markets_on Chain, with our new STM.co rebrand. So go follow us there in the meantime. And with that, have a great weekend and happy tokenizing.